My name is Osvaldo Gutierrez. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Maryland. I'll be moving in a couple of weeks to Texas A&M University. I was born in Mexico, came to the United States as an undocumented immigrant, but managed to, one way or another, get into undergraduate school at UCLA, pay for my PhD program at UC Davis, acquire a postdoc position at the University of Pennsylvania, and then finally become an assistant professor where my group now focuses on using the knowledge that I learned both in computation and experiment to design new systems, new chemical methods, and accelerate the development of new medicines. I was always fascinated by how things work, but as a child, my goal in Mexico was really to become a shepherd. So my goal was really to learn as much as I could how to take care of sheep. My goal was to manage 100 to 200 sheep at that moment. So that was not in science. But once we immigrated to the United States, that's when I started becoming more interested in science. And initially, I wanted to do research because I wanted to become a medical doctor. And as part of the application process, they want you to do volunteering activities. They want you to do some research. And so I figured that I needed that research part in my resume. But once I got into the research part, I just felt really a passion to being there. I just wanted to be there all the time. So it's like finding something that you really love and enjoy. And afterwards, I didn't want to go to classes. I didn't want to go into volunteering activities. It was really, I just wanted to be in the lab and try to figure things out, see if we could find something unique about a certain system. Of course, the main obstacle that I faced was not really the courses or how challenging they were. I think if you really love something, no matter if you get a bad grade, you're going to enjoy the process, right? But the challenges were really to support myself. How do you pay for undergraduate? And especially, I think in my situation as an undocumented immigrant, basically very limited in terms of how you're going to pay. You can't get loans. You shouldn't be working. You might get deported at any given point. So you had to be strategic about how you got money in order to pay for your expenses. And so I was dishwashing. I was a dishwasher while I was doing my PhD. I was bussing tables, and eventually I became a server, and that made a little more money with tips and whatnot. But at the side, I had to do a lot of tutoring in order to support myself and pay for the school. So that was the main challenge thing, was a financial. And another thing that was challenging for me, finding a community. I did not find a lot of people looking like me in the scientific field. So, and that made you feel that maybe you were not welcome. And maybe that's the reason why you didn't see a lot of people. We had the same problem 15 years ago with women. Women were not in PhD programs as prevalent as they are now. So I think, but given the success in women's in chemistry, I think we could also achieve success in diversifying science by slowly making progress. So that was some of the challenges that I faced. I was at the community college for like 6 years. So I didn't know what I wanted to major on. I just knew that in order to go to medical school, I needed to find something in the sciences. Ideally, that would be the best strategy. But then I started looking at it more as a strategic plan. I saw that a lot of people that were going into medical school, they either biology majors or biochemistry majors. One of the conferences that I went is at Stanford University. They told you about basically you want to differentiate yourself. You want to become unique. And that's when I felt that chemistry, there was not a lot of chemistry people going into medical school. So I figured maybe that would be a good thing. What about a math major? So I was lingering between a math and a chemistry major. I decided to go with chemistry because it combined basically at the community college. If you want to become a chemist, you had to become a physicist, a biochemist, a biology, a math major, and an engineer. So you had to take all those courses. It took me 6 years at the community college to kind of catch up and get myself ready. When I went to UCLA, the environment, because it was very expensive, much more expensive, I managed to graduate in 2.5 years with a bachelor's and my master's. But that's because I crammed 20 to 30 units every single quarter. And I just needed to get out. So I didn't care if I was taking 10 courses every quarter, but I needed to figure out a way to get out. But eventually, with the thing that kind of changed everything in terms of medical school and PhD, it was that I fell in love with the chemical research. So that gave me one option. But I also, during the process of applying, I already had a really good MCAS score for medical school. But when I called Stanford University, I told them that I was going to submit my application, but I was running into issues. into applying because they asked for a social security number. They asked if you're domestic or international. And I called them, it's like, I can't solve this problem. It doesn't let me advance into the application process. And they said that basically there was no hope for myself because I needed to be classified as an international. But then I had to leave the country in order to basically get a visa because they said, if you're international, you need a visa of some sort. And therefore, in order to get the visa, you need to show that you have enough money in your bank account to pay for the whole medical school. And my family, I mean, my dad was making $425 an hour. We didn't have anything close to even paying for 1/10 of that. So at that moment, I kind of switched gears. It was a life-changing kind of event. But at the same time, I had other options because I was not solidifying just medical school. That I figured, why not do chemistry? And the way that it got structured, I was doing computational chemistry. So for the PhD, I figured that I should learn more new things if I really wanted, again, differentiate myself amongst everybody else. So if I want to do more computation, I knew I was going to become a computational chemist. So I went and did computations, but also with the condition that I was going to do some experiments too, because I figured that if you start blending more things and becoming more interdisciplinary, then you will have a better chance of maybe discovering something new or tackling problems a certain way. It's something that is slightly different than everybody else. So when I went to David, started doing some experiments, but at the end, one of the things that posed problems is it was still undocumented. So that limited me. It was becoming basically, if there was an accident in the lab, then the university was going to be liable, and I didn't want to put the university in an awkward situation. So instead, I decided to focus more on computational. When I went to the University of Pennsylvania as a postdoc, that's when I started doing more experiments because at that point I was able to get my social security in line. So part of the Barack Obama's DACA program, the executive action, it allowed people like myself to kind of get a social security number, get a work permit. So then I was able to do a lot of the fun things that I was able to do. And now I'm just combining both the experiments and the computation to do new chemistry. I will tell you about a very exciting project that we have right now. Is currently under review in one of the top journals in science. And that has to do with developing cheaper methods to make medicines. And typically, people use very expensive catalyst transition metals, for instance, palladium, to make carbon-carbon bonds, to make medicines. My mom died of cancer, and one of the drugs that she's using, chemists can make themselves. It actually is not practical. So it's really made using biological tools. So it's more a biological, basically, solution right now to make that medicine Taxol that kind of helps people that have breast cancer. If chemists really want to advance in the next 50 years to make new molecules, to make things more practical, we need to start thinking about creative ways to make molecules. And by creative, I really mean sustainable. You have to use sustainable metals. You cannot use metals that are extremely rare. So we're looking at using things that we quickly get access to. And for us, it's iron. Iron is everywhere. Iron is you can find it even in the bridges or rust in it that develops basically in your house and anywhere, right? So we're trying to use iron to make carbon-carbon bonds. And I think that's going to be a strategy that down the future could have very practical and potential implications to not only making new kinds of medicine more rapidly, but also a lot cheaper and also sustainable. Basically, when you use iron in the lab, you don't need to dispose of that in some special way. You're not using something that's highly toxic. Just imagine if the only way to make a medicine, something like Taxol, something practical, was using uranium. That will pose a lot of problems. So we're trying to move away from things of that nature. So use things that actually ideally use, let's say, a protein to make those there. That would be the best organic way to make basically a medicine. So we're using something similar, and we use for us iron chemistry to build new molecules. And the way this project came about, and that highly speaks of our method, is like, why in the past 70 years nobody has thought about this method? And they have, but I think right now we spent a lot of time trying to investigate how things work. And finally, once we understood how things work, we're able to quickly modulate the system to make it work as we like. And before, it was all trial and error. So you mix this, you mix that. Sometimes you don't get reproducible results. So I think for us, understanding how things work is becoming more impactful than rather than trial and error. And chemistry, to a large degree, it's still trial and error. You have to just try. Chem is try chemistry. You have to just try in the lab, see if it works. And for us, like, no, we're trying to make chemistry understand how things work and then start testing things. So we're very excited about that project. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we have some really good news. In the day of non-COVID, right, took my daughter to high school, to her school. For me, it's important to be still do all those things. So me and my wife always took our daughter to drop her off at school. After we have some coffee, then at that point we split different ways. And I went to the lab. I answered emails. I started thinking about the projects, where we are in the projects. I meet up with students individually, so it's not all of them on the same day, but maybe 1 or 2 a day. Kind of meet and see where they are in the project, see what's going on in their lives, kind of connect with them. And right around noon, I'll go and have lunch by myself, or my wife was an undergraduate at University of Maryland, so we used to meet up for lunch at that moment. And at 1 or 1:30, I'll work again in more projects, thinking, what is the next thing that we have to do in terms of grants? Maybe write one paragraph, maybe even make one figure, and that was good enough for me. And around 2, I went to the gym, came back, and then it was this time kind of to make sure that everything in the lab was great. Went to pick up my daughter with my wife, and we went home and have dinner. And afterwards, if there's some things that I still needed to do in order to write a grant or to finish a paper, then I'll go work for a while, and at night, maybe 1 or 2 hours, and then after, then that'll be it. What kind of surprised me and is how friendly that community really is and how welcoming it really is. Just because you have a different background, or you don't look alike like the rest, or you don't share the same experience, it does not mean that you're not going to be welcome. Actually, they even scientists and naturally they like diversity because they're working on diverse chemical problems. So in a way, they also like diverse people that come. They're not all the same. They have the unique background and the unique perspective. So I found the community to be extremely accepting, extremely welcoming, extremely supportive. And that for me has been amazing. And I'm trying to do my part and also be there as much as I can for other people that might need some kind of advice or guidance or an opportunity to be in the lab and to do that. But that's something that I was very surprised by. Believe in yourself that you can become a scientist, that you could change the world. And I always think that what's kind of unique about being a scientist is you're creating things, you're creating something new. If you become a doctor, a medical doctor, maybe you won't create new things. Maybe you just kind of play the role of helping other people. If you want to develop new tools, scientists is going to be very welcoming to you, and think the community is going to be very welcoming to you. This science to me and being a professor is not a job. It's really more of a sport. There's some challenges, there's some work to it, but you're always having fun and you choose your own schedule. So it's very flexible. I mean, that's one thing. It's not a 8 to 5 type of jobs. I think you can set up your schedule as you like. Sometimes you can work 1 hour, sometimes you work 10 hours. It's up to you, whatever you think is necessary. If you want to go into chemistry at this age, especially now in the age of digital media and social media, YouTube, looking for chemistry speakers. Just look for chemistry advice, even as simple, something like that. And eventually, slowly, they're going to tell you about certain programs. But right now, it's like, don't focus so much on, I need to get into this program in order to get into that one. The more you immerse yourself with people rather than programs, I think the better you're going to be. So I think for now, at this age, is have fun with it. Just watch like a video, say, oh, what do they do? What kind of things can a chemist do? Can a biologist do? And biochemists can do? And then hear about their trajectory and say, you know what? I kind of fit along this line. This seems like this could be me. And you're going to find out that no matter how unique you think you are, there's always going to be somebody that is has followed kind of your own path. And you can follow their own path and make it kind of unique to yourself as well. So listen to people on YouTube. That's the first starting point.